Hey guys, tonight's story starts with a banquet where the bread is harder than masonry, the swan wears a crown, and the pig gets more respect than you. Every dish has a backstory, every sauce costs more than a peasant's house, and the entertainment somehow involves juggling live eels. The peacock in the center isn't for eating. It's just there to remind you how poor you are. And yet, here you sit, chewing slowly, politely, while wondering which bite is going to follow you into your nightmares. But before you get too cozy, take a second to gently tap that new hype button YouTube just added. It really does help little guys like me push through the algorithm. And take a second to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy this strange little corner of quiet storytelling. And drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's strangely comforting to know who else is drifting off with us around the world. Now get comfortable, let the day melt away, and we'll drift back together into the quiet corners of the past. You wake to the sound of silver spoons clinking against porcelain, which is a confusing noise because you don't remember going to bed with anyone stirring tea at your bedside. But here it is. Clink, clink. Like a polite duel between spoons and sanity, you blink twice. The ceiling above you is painted with angels, or maybe ducks in wigs. It's hard to say without proper light. A breeze rustles the tapestry near your bed, carrying with it the unmistakable scent of roasted something, possibly fowl, possibly venison, possibly one of the house cats. If cook got creative again, your limbs feel heavy, not from sleep, but from consumption. You are not hungry. You haven't been hungry since the feast of Street Rumwald, where you consumed enough custard to feel your ancestors weeping. But that means nothing. Hunger is not a prerequisite for eating. It is simply polite to chew on the hour. And it is very much the hour. A servant stands at the foot of your bed, holding a tray that may or may not be bending under the weight of an entire breakfast ham. He bows. You nod, weakly. That is the exchange. That is always the exchange. On the side table, a boiled quail's egg sits on a tiny pewter throne. No one eats it. It's ceremonial. It's been there 3 days. You are beginning to suspect it watches you. The bed is warm, lined with furs and filled with regrets. Your robe lies where it always does, draped over a wooden chair carved to look like a lion judging your life choices. You pull it on, slowly, like one might approach a bear in a sleeping bag. A second servant appears to hand you a damp cloth scented with rosewater and ambition. You wipe your face. The scent stays. So does the ambition, mostly because it isn't yours. In the corner, a fire crackles cheerfully beside a table, already burdened with food. There is a pie. No, 2 pies. One is open-faced and filled with what looks like pears and maybe remorse. The other is sealed shut, like a tomb. You know better than to ask what's inside. It's safer that way. You shuffle across the room, like a minor deity fallen from grace. The floor is cold. The rug has shifted overnight and bunched like an inconvenient prophecy. You trip over it anyway. The third servant in the room doesn't flinch. He's seen worse. Once he watched your cousin choke on a marzipan pig and still managed to serve custard with a straight face. You trust him more than you trust most family members. At the window, the light is soft and judgmental. A goose wanders past outside, honking like it has urgent business. It's probably right. You stare back at it, mildly ashamed. You are wearing one slipper and a robe embroidered with lions fighting dragons, which isn't very breakfast appropriate. But again, no one dares mention it. The chair groans as you sit. You groan louder. It's not a competition, but you win. On the table now, a wedge of cheese that looks like it's contemplating violence, 3 slices of blood sausage arranged like abstract art, and a bowl of something green that wiggles when you breathe too hard. A goblet of spiced wine rests beside it all. Morning wine, the kind with cinnamon, cloves, and the memory of last night's regrets stirred in. You sip. It burns slightly, the good kind of burn, the kind that says, Yes, you are a person of means and deeply bad choices. You pick up a spoon, not to use it, just to hold it, to remind yourself that cutlery exists. You try the sausage first. It tastes like iron and inherited wealth. The cheese follows. It fights back. You admire its commitment. You poke the green thing with the spoon. It quivers and does not answer your questions. A fourth servant enters. He's holding a tray with more food. Of course he is. A honeyed duck leg, a boiled pear, a slice of oatcake soaked in almond milk. You begin to wonder if perhaps you're being punished. You nod anyway. He places it all in front of you with the care of a man laying down a sacred relic. Then he bows and vanishes into the stone corridor like a ghost who attended culinary school. You eat because you must. Not out of need, but out of decorum. Rich people don't eat when they're hungry. They eat when there's an audience, or when the calendar says it's time, or when someone offers them a meat pastry shaped like a castle. You chew, slowly, nobly. You wonder if this is what nobility is, chewing expensive things while pretending it doesn't make you sad. Your cousin enters without knocking. She's already dressed in 15 layers of velvet and judgment. She glances at your plate, your robe, your singular slipper, and smiles with all the warmth of a tax collector. You started without me, she says, settling into the opposite chair like a queen claiming a throne no one invited her to. She reaches for the blood sausage. You let her. It is the closest you've come to mercy this week. The conversation is brief and meaningless. Weather, pigeons, the bishop's beard. You nod in the appropriate places. The duck is starting to look at you funny. Or maybe that's just the cloves. A bard begins to tune a lute somewhere in the hallway. He's early. He's always early. You make a note to complain about him, and then forget instantly because your cousin is now arguing about the proper way to salt a pheasant. You excuse yourself politely and rise with the grace of a man whose knees are filled with pie. The tray is cleared by the fifth servant you've seen this morning. He does not speak. He does not blink. You suspect he might be made of wax. Outside, the goose honks again, this time louder. It has found a worm. You envy it. Back in bed, you pretend to read a scroll about land management. It is upside down. No one notices. The leftover oatcake sits near the fire, slowly hardening into something that could serve as a building material. You yawn, not from exhaustion, but from the weight of digestion and expectation. Somewhere, someone is boiling fish in ale. Somewhere, someone else is planning your second breakfast. You lie back against the embroidered pillow and whisper the morning's final prayer. May the next thing be lighter, or at least involve fewer sauces. The quail egg watches in silence. You attempt to sit up. Mistake. Your spine makes a noise like someone stepping on an old scroll, and your right knee refuses to participate entirely. A tray has been placed across your lap with all the subtlety of a siege weapon. It is heavy. It is hot. It is filled with meat. Not just meat. Veal, rosy and steaming, reclining on a pillow of spiced lentils like it's posing for a portrait. Figs have been sliced and arranged around it in a vague circle of judgment. One has a clove stuck in it, presumably to make it festive. A sprig of something green attempts to look important. It is failing. Someone has garnished the entire thing with a feather. A feather. You stare at it. It stares back. You do not touch it. You are not supposed to question the feather. You glance to your left. The dog has eaten half your eggs, not metaphorically. He is sitting on your coverlet with one egg in his mouth and a second yolk smeared across his snout like war paint. His name is Sir Thomas, and he is, by all technicalities, a knight. He was knighted last summer by a lord with gout and a generous interpretation of fealty. There had been wine involved. Now Sir Thomas guards your chamber like a furry goblin, and occasionally bites footmen for breathing too enthusiastically. You let him keep the eggs. He's earned them. Outside, a bell tolls twice, morning prayer, or possibly a structural issue with the chapel. It's hard to tell anymore. You reach for the goblet beside your tray. It's filled with warmed ale, or possibly wine, or possibly broth pretending to be wine. You sip. It is all three. The flavor is somewhere between spoiled raisins and ambition. You drink anyway. Hydration is a noble pursuit. The veal steams. It dares you to eat it. You prod it gently with a spoon. The spoon bends. Not a good sign. You try the figs. They are sweet, soft, and slightly alarming. One contains a whole almond, which your teeth were not consulted about. You chew with caution and dignity. You succeed at neither. A servant appears. You didn't hear the door open. They never knock. He is holding a second tray. This one has a wedge of soft cheese, a pile of rye toast arranged in a small tower, and a dish of pickled onions that smell like resentment. He bows deeply, places the tray beside you, and withdraws without a word. You suspect he was once an assassin, and this is his penance. The cheese is daringly soft. It spreads like gossip and smells like someone's uncle. The rye toast is too sharp. The crust threatens the roof of your mouth like it has unresolved issues. The onions glare at you. You eat too. They bite back. The dog sneezes violently and then falls asleep with his entire body pressed against your thigh. You are pinned. The tray weighs more than your regrets and is just as persistent. A gust of wind pushes the curtains aside and sunlight slinks into the room like it's trying not to be noticed. It lands squarely on the veal, illuminating it like a relic. The feather trembles slightly. You resist the urge to throw it. Somewhere below, the kitchens are boiling something that sounds like it used to be alive and still remembers. A scullery boy yells. A hen screams. The castle continues living without you. It does not care that your toast has splintered into an architectural hazard. You make another attempt at the veal, this time with a knife that may or may not be ceremonial. It cuts, eventually, after some negotiation. The meat is tender, spiced with what might be cinnamon and guilt. You chew slowly, thoughtfully, as if it might be watching. You wonder briefly how long it's been since the piglet-shaped sugar sculptures were considered a luxury. Now there's one sitting on your napkin. You poke it. It crumbles slightly. You decide not to eat it. You've grown wary of things with faces. A knock finally comes. Late. Unnecessary. A young page peeks in, holding a scroll and a jug. He sees the dog, the eggs, the feather, and chooses to focus on the jug. "Syrup," he says, like he's offering salvation. You nod. He pours a little over the rye tower. It collapses. He doesn't flinch. You want to ask where the syrup came from, but you already know it's from somewhere expensive and sticky. Possibly France. Possibly a tree cursed by monks. The page bows, retreats. The door creaks closed. You stare down at your plate. It's less full now. The veal has submitted. The figs have scattered. The onions remain defiant. You try the cheese again, this time with toast. The texture is wrong. The flavor is divine. You eat more. The dog sighs in his sleep and kicks the air like he's chasing something. Probably geese. He hates geese. You lean back slowly, carefully shifting the tray to the table with the grace of someone disarming a trap. You exhale. The meal is not finished, but it is over. That's the best you can do. A small bowl of candied ginger sits near the edge of the table. You take one piece. It burns. It heals. It reminds you that your body is technically alive. You chew it slowly while staring at the embroidered ceiling, trying to remember if today is the day you meet with the steward or the day you pretend to be ill to avoid the steward. Outside, hooves clatter on stone. A cart squeaks. Someone yells about flour. The castle begins to hum with purpose. You are not ready for purpose. You are barely ready for shoes. The feather has migrated to the windowsill. It catches the wind and lifts slightly. You wish it well. The dog shifts, flops on his back, paws in the air. You reach out and scratch his belly. He growls, softly, affectionately, then farts with the confidence of royalty. You accept it. It is, after all, breakfast. They bring you bread, not soft, forgiving bread like you once dreamed of, warm and yielding, and wrapped in linen like a sleeping saint. No, this bread is hard, not firm, not crusty, not pleasantly rustic. Hard. It makes a sound when placed on the table, like a small rock being introduced to gravity. It has corners. You pick it up. It fights back. You are not entirely convinced it isn't a repurposed building material. You drop it onto the tray with reverence and fear. Beside the bread is a trencher. You are told this is the plate. You nod because you are noble and thus fluent in nonsense. The trencher is a thick slab of stale bread, carved into a general platish shape by someone who clearly hates both bread and you. It has absorbed the juices of meats long since eaten. You stare at it. It stares back, soaked in gravy and generational trauma. You are supposed to place your meal upon it. You are also, later, expected to eat it. This is considered practical. You consider it a threat. A servant adds another loaf to the table, this one taller, like someone baked ambition into it. It is referred to as manchette. It sounds French. You forgive it slightly for that. It's lighter, finer, fluffier in a medieval way, which means it only has the density of a small brick rather than a large one. You break it open, steam escapes, or possibly a ghost. You eat a piece the size of a thimble and pretend you're full. Everyone else does. The dog watches you. He is eyeing the trencher. He knows you won't eat it. No one ever eats the trencher unless they're drunk, lost a bet, or were born with a fondness for damp crust. Still, you nibble at the edge because someone is watching from the hallway. One of the kitchen boys, holding a ladle in judgment. You chew. The texture is ancient. The flavor is medieval. You lie to your mouth and tell it everything is going to be okay. A second tray arrives. More bread. You don't ask why. Asking implies curiosity, and curiosity leads to information, and information leads to despair. This one is rye, dark and sour and deeply Protestant in temperament. It smells faintly of old church pews and possibly horse. You eat a corner. Your teeth negotiate. They file a formal complaint. Another loaf is placed down. A coarse barley round. This one crumbles slightly, like it's ashamed of itself. It is a peasant's bread, they whisper, even though it has arrived in a silver dish. You eat it anyway, in solidarity, or pity, or hunger that refuses to die no matter how many swans you consume. A slab of butter appears, pale and quivering. It is shaped like a swan, though someone has clearly sat on it. You apply it to the bread, generously, like a noble throwing coins at a problem. It does not help. The bread absorbs it like a sponge that resents flavor. You chew again. The servant clears the crumbs before they hit the table. You begin to suspect he is trained in some kind of culinary divination. The cheese returns. You did not ask for it. It comes uninvited, as all cheese does. A sharp wedge, hard and yellowing, smelling like ambition left out in the sun. It's meant to go with the bread, you're told. You nod. You carve a piece, place it on a slice of barley loaf, and take a bite. The cheese tries to win. You refuse to lose. Your eyes water slightly. Victory is ambiguous. You remember that bread is supposed to represent the body of something. God, perhaps, or taxes. Either way, you feel guilty chewing it. You wonder when bread stopped being a blessing and became a burden. You wonder why no one else is chewing as loudly as you are. You wonder if the dog would like the trencher more than you do. He senses your thoughts and licks his lips. He understands you. He always has. The conversation at the table drifts toward the harvest. You pretend to listen while inspecting a small roll that has appeared on your plate without explanation. It is dusted with flour and ambition. You tap it. It echoes. You try to tear it in half, but it resists. You bite it directly. Mistake. It has the consistency of vengeance. You swallow hard and smile like someone being knighted with a burning log. Another trencher arrives. This one is slightly soggier, You are told it's from the roast. You suspect it has seen horrors. You are meant to eat it with the drippings still inside, like a sponge cake made of despair. You pick it up with 2 fingers. It droops. You drop it onto your plate. It makes a noise you hope to never hear again. Across the room, your cousin is daintily buttering a manchette roll while pretending to be better than you. Her bread is lighter, warmer, clearly favored by fate. She catches your eye and smiles sweetly, the kind of smile that comes with hidden knives. You nod back and pretend your trencher isn't sagging into your goblet. The priest arrives for his portion. He says grace again, even though the bread has already committed sins. He takes the barley, blesses it, and dips it into something red. Wine, probably. Blood, possibly. He chews solemnly. He does not blink. You admire his strength. At the end of the meal, what remains is cleared, except the trencher. It sits on your plate, soaked and limp, like a survivor. You are supposed to eat it. You consider your options: cowardice, defiance, or adoption. You nudge it toward the dog. He sniffs it, licks it once, and walks away. This is his final verdict. You excuse yourself with the dignity of someone who has made eye contact with death and declined seconds. As you leave the table, the servant whisks away the trencher and throws it into a separate bin labeled charity. You are not sure whether to feel grateful or insulted. Somewhere, someone less lucky than you will eat that plate. You hope they have strong teeth and no sense of smell. You return to your chambers, tongue scratched, jaw tired, soul slightly fermented. The bread sits in your stomach like a small, angry monument. You lie on the bed and whisper a vow to never eat another trencher again. You know it's a lie. The bread always wins. The table has changed. It does that sometimes, without warning, like a battlefield or a dream. The bread trenchers are gone, possibly buried in a pit somewhere behind the stables, possibly sent to war. In their place, a new battalion of food has arrived, carried in by 6 sweating servants and 1 man with a lute who seems to be paid per cord. The main attraction is already visible from your seat. 2 roast swans, lacquered in something sweet and speculative, resting on silver platters the size of cartwheels. One of the swans wears a crown, not a full crown, but a delicate circlet, gold leaf pressed into the down near its stiff, judgmental head. This, you are told, is symbolic. You ask what it symbolizes. No one knows. Possibly glory, possibly conquest, possibly the cook's sense of humor. The swan looks deeply offended, as if it remembers its former life gliding across a moat, unaware that its next role would be centerpiece. You nod politely to it, just in case. Then you eat it. The meat is rich, oily, tasting faintly of lake and hierarchy. It is darker than you expect. Someone says that's how you know it's noble. Another says, the darker the meat, the more honor in the flesh. A third claims the swan was blessed by a bishop, and therefore can't technically be eaten without absolution. You don't ask for the bishop. You keep chewing. A minstrel has appeared. He plucks gently at his lute and begins to narrate your bites. Lo, the Lord takes flesh from fowl with grace and ample chewing. He sings in a low, nasal tone. See how the grease doth glisten on his chin, like dew on the rose of morning. You try to wipe your face, discreetly. You knock over your cup. The minstrel changes key. A goblet spills. Alas, a stain. Yet still he eats, the noble soul, undaunted by disaster. You regret every coin ever given to the arts. A juggler appears beside him, wordless and wide-eyed. He is juggling eels. Not cooked eels, not symbolic eels, live ones. They twist mid-air like furious ropes. You have never seen an eel juggler. You are not sure you want to again. He smiles at you, a thin and greasy smile. You clap, because that's what you do when someone endangers themselves for your amusement. One eel slips. It hits the table. It slaps against the trencher bowl. It flops twice and vanishes under the tablecloth. The juggler freezes. The eel wins. You resume eating. More dishes arrive. A pie, this one taller than your wrist, containing a mystery you are told is Heron and Friends. A bowl of green sauce that tastes mostly like regret. Small game birds stuffed with something you don't identify, wrapped in bacon, tied with string, and presented on a wooden plank that may or may not be an old door. The servant sets it down and backs away like it might explode. You watch it for a moment. It does not. Sir Thomas the dog appears under your chair. He has eel slime on his snout. You choose not to ask. He rests his chin on your boot and waits. You sneak him a bite of the Heron Friend pie. He takes it gently, then sneezes directly onto your shin. It is the only honest relationship in your life. Across the table, your uncle has begun a speech about swan hunting rights. No one asked. He explains in detail how he once caught a swan with a net made of horsehair and determination. He claims the swan bit him. He shows the scar. It looks like a pimple. You nod solemnly, because he is important and owns several churches. The crowned swan is now missing its wings. You wonder where they went. Possibly to your cousin's plate. Possibly into the dog. Possibly to heaven. You eat another slice, then stab at a roasted apple soaked in wine. It falls apart in a sticky collapse, dripping red across your plate. You mop it with bread that has returned without comment, as if the morning never happened. The trencher this time is soft and spongy, as though it too has given up. The minstrel continues. He is singing about digestion now. He rhymes stomach with strummeth. You try not to make eye contact. The juggler is gone. The eel is not. You hear it beneath the table, occasionally thudding against your foot, like an opinion you didn't ask for. Another pie. This one is peacock. The tail feathers have been stuck back into the crust as decoration. You admire the artistry. You do not eat the pie. You've learned your lesson. The feathers look like they could whisper secrets or curse your lineage. No one else touches it either. It will be passed down for generations. Wine is poured. It is spiced and warm and clings to your cup like syrup. You sip. It sticks to your teeth. You smile. Your teeth regret it. A goose-based stew is ladled into bowls carved from hollowed bread. You pretend not to notice. Your stomach sends up a small flag of protest. You ignore it. The swan's crown falls off. No one moves to fix it. A final course arrives. Sugared almonds and comfits dyed bright pink and blue, like something made for children or royalty. They taste like honey and chalk. You eat too many. The servant sees. He raises one eyebrow. You raise both. A standoff begins. He wins. Eventually, the meal ends. The servants clear the platters. The crown is taken last. The minstrel strikes one final chord and bows. No one claps. The eel flops near the fireplace and disappears behind a tapestry. The dog yawns. Your cousin is asleep with her face in the pie. You rise slowly, nobly, like someone who has just survived a minor battle. You pat your stomach. It does not pat back. You walk to the window. Outside, the pond is still. Two swans glide past, unaware of the treason on your breath. You don't wave. You just whisper an apology. The meat looks familiar, but the colors are all wrong. Someone has covered a roast in a paste, the color of gold, and another dish is aggressively pink. Nothing here is allowed to be plain. There is no salt and pepper, no butter for spreading. There is only sauce, bowls of it, jugs of it, small pots lined in pewter, one already crusting over like a wound. A servant arrives carrying a tray of tiny ladles and a large sense of superiority. He says nothing. He does not need to. The sauces speak for themselves. You reach for the green one first. It's not labeled, but nothing that bright could be accidental. It glows slightly in the candlelight. It smells like herbs and panic. Someone calls it verjuice, with a sigh that implies poetry. You dip a slice of cold venison into it. The flavor is sharp, bracing, sour like a bad decision made in spring. Your eyes water. You nod approvingly. This is what power tastes like. A different jug holds almond milk sauce. It looks like wet plaster and tastes like sweet mud. You are told it took 4 hours to make and 3 almonds to produce. That is 3 more almonds than anyone at the table has ever seen in one place. You take another bite, chew politely, and push the rest toward the dog. He sniffs it and pretends not to understand you. It's humiliating. The saffron sauce is presented next. You are not allowed to touch it directly. It is spooned over your food by a woman wearing velvet and contempt. She calls it a drizzle, but it feels more like a warning. The smell hits you first. Earthy, smoky, precious. You remember someone once said saffron costs more than rubies. You believe it. You feel richer just inhaling. You chew slowly, carefully, like you're worried someone might charge you again for the privilege. Then comes rosewater. Sweet, fragrant, and confusing. It has been poured over a pile of roasted carrots, turning them into something that should probably be worn instead of eaten. You take a cautious bite. It tastes like a love letter left in the rain. The carrots dissolve into perfume. You chew like someone trying to remember how vegetables work. Across the table, your cousin dips a fig into the same sauce and eats it with her eyes closed. You envy her commitment. Vinegar is offered as a palate cleanser. You do not ask from what. It arrives in a small ceramic cup, dark and sour and bubbling with ambition. You sip. Your mouth tightens. Your soul leaves briefly and returns wearing a coat. You say, out loud because someone is watching. The vinegar watches back. A bird you don't recognize is brought to the table. Its skin is glistening, its wings tucked in, its expression defiant. The cook calls it a partridge. You are not convinced. You ask what sauce goes with it. The answer is yes. Someone dumps cinnamon all over it. Not just a dusting, a burial. The partridge dies again, this time under a layer of spice and symbolism. It smells like a feast at a spice merchant's funeral. You cut in. The meat is tender, gamey, coated in a sweetness that sticks to your molars and your memory. You chew. It lingers. It haunts. Another sauce arrives. No one tells you what it is. It's pale, slightly greenish, with the consistency of ambition left out in the sun. You dip a crust of bread into it. It tastes like pine needles and grief. You like it more than you expected. You don't ask again. You notice that no one is eating anything plain. That's not allowed. Everything must be dipped, marinated, steeped, infused, or drowned. Food is not to be tasted. It is to be transformed. Your meat is nothing until it wears a new skin. Your vegetables are naked without a glaze. Even the trenchers are being used to sop up whatever's left. One lord across the room spoons sauce directly into his mouth like a peasant with something to prove. You try the violet sauce. Just once. It tastes like crushed flowers and regret. You feel your ancestors judging you. You take another bite. It grows on you. Possibly literally. You begin to see the rules. The more expensive the sauce, the less of it you actually want. That's the point. This isn't about flavor. This is about theater. About telling the room that someone spent an hour grinding spices from a continent they can't pronounce, so your chicken could taste vaguely of mystery. It is about hierarchy. Your tongue is no longer a tool. It is a ledger. The saffron returns. This time, on a custard. You are not emotionally prepared. The dish is warm, thick, golden, and unsettling. You eat it anyway. It tastes like honey, milk, and debt. You want to cry? You don't. The dog licks your fingers when you reach for another sauce. It's unclear whether he's helping or asking for help. You hand him a crust soaked in almond milk, and he eats it with the weary resignation of someone who has seen too much. He does not look you in the eye again. A servant replaces your bowl of green sauce with a fresher one. You didn't ask. They nod as if they've done something heroic. You nod back. This is diplomacy. You look around the table. No one is eating the same thing. Everyone is dipping, drizzling, pairing sauces like alchemists. Someone is layering rosewater over pickled pears. Another is combining vinegar with dried plum paste and declaring it bold. A woman with teeth like stained glass is sipping a spoonful of broth with saffron and murmuring about Venice. You think she's never been to Venice. You think the broth has. You finish your meal with a spoonful of something labeled simply black sauce. It is thick. It is sticky. It tastes like treacle and secrets. You are certain it has no name in any human language. You close your eyes. You float. When you open them, the table is a battlefield of bowls and jugs, half empty and half spilled. The swan crown has been dipped in honey for reasons unclear. The air smells like 10 kinds of decision-making. You rise, lips stained, fingers sticky, stomach confused but obedient. Sauce is status, and you are drowning in it. The pepper arrives in a box locked with iron clasps. You watch as the steward turns a key around his neck and lifts the lid like he's unveiling a relic. Inside is a small pile of black dust. Not much, maybe 2 teaspoons, if you're feeling generous or dishonest. You lean in to sniff it. It smells like power. Not metaphorical power. Not the idea of influence. Actual power. It smells like caravans and bribes and someone getting stabbed over a shipping manifest. It smells like everything you own. The steward lets you hold the pepper for a moment, just to feel it. It's warm from the sun, or from being worth more than your cousin's dowry. You pretend not to care. You hand it back with a nod that says, "Yes, I too am familiar with wealth in powdered form." The steward replaces the lid and locks it again. You do not see the pepper again for several minutes, which is how long it takes them to grate exactly 1/2 a pinch over your goose. It changes everything. The meat becomes mysterious. It whispers stories to your tongue. You chew like someone guarding a secret. Across the table, your uncle is bragging about his access to cinnamon. He says it comes from a special tree tended by monks who only speak in riddles. You know this is false. Cinnamon comes from Sri Lanka. You don't know where Sri Lanka is, but you've heard of it. You nod anyway. He could die at any moment, and you don't want your last conversation to be about bark. A bowl of stewed pears arrives, gently steaming under a lace of cloves. You are told each clove is worth a chicken. You eat 6. You briefly wonder if you've just bankrupted a village. The pears are sweet and spicy and slightly aggressive, like a poem you don't fully understand but feel obligated to admire. You want more. The steward says no. The steward is probably right. A page brings a tiny vial to your place. It contains saffron, real saffron, threads like dried sunbeams curled into a golden tangle. You sprinkle it slowly, deliberately, like someone hurling coins into a peasant's bucket with one hand while composing a sonnet with the other. The threads fall onto your trout in tiny curls, transforming it from food into something vaguely holy. Someone gasps. It might be you. Nutmeg appears next. The nut itself is shown around like a relic, cradled in cloth, passed hand to hand so everyone can nod at it. One guest claims it cures everything. You believe him, because he's wearing gloves made entirely of fur and smells faintly of confidence. The nutmeg is grated into a jug of warm milk with honey, cloves, and a whisper of mustard seed. It is served in tiny cups, like a potion. You sip. Your throat burns gently. You feel healthier, or possibly wealthier. At this point, you're not sure there's a difference. Someone sneezes. Conversation stops. Heads turn. The sneezer, your cousin's second husband, possibly named Reginald, possibly irrelevant, looks around with the desperate eyes of a man who has just destroyed the economic balance of the table. The steward frowns. You all wait. I believe it was the ginger, he says, gesturing toward a bowl of stewed duck legs spiced into transcendence. The ginger is strong, sharp, and not quite legal in 3 territories. Someone nods. The fine is issued. 2 shillings. It is paid in silence. You chew your duck slowly, thinking of pirates. Ginger comes from lands with elephants and rivers that glow. You picture a man dying just to get it onto a boat. You do not stop chewing. Cardamom is mentioned in a hushed tone. No one sees it, but someone claims it's in the custard. You eat the custard. You cannot tell. You say it is divine. Everyone agrees. No one admits they have no idea what cardamom actually tastes like. Your goblet is refilled with spiced wine. It has cinnamon, clove, and possibly something illegal. You sip. You see colors. Your cousin whispers that she once traded a dowry goat for a box of mace. You are impressed. The goat probably wasn't worth much. A tray of sweets arrives. Fritters, honey-drenched and shimmering with crushed anise. A tart with saffron custard so vibrant it could lead a procession. A single preserved cherry that has been spiced with pepper, rolled in sugar, and presented in its own bowl. You are allowed one bite. It costs more than your bed linens. You ask where the spices come from. Someone says Arabia. Someone else says Cathay. Someone else just shrugs and says the East, like it's a place you can point to on a well-meaning map. You nod like you've been there. No one presses. Everyone is lying. The juggler returns. This time he juggles 3 sacks labeled pepper, nutmeg, and hope. The sacks are empty. The humor is noted. No one laughs. Spices are not a joke. You are offered a choice of sauces again. One has cinnamon, another has galangal. You pretend to know what galangal is. You choose both. The flavors argue. You eat them anyway. The steward retrieves the pepper box. He counts what's left. You watch. It is almost reverent. He snaps the lock shut with a sound like finality. You wonder if you'll dream about it. You suspect you will. Later, in your chamber, you smell your fingers. They smell like everything rare, like things brought across oceans, like sweat and silk and someone being stabbed over a crate. You wipe them on a cloth embroidered with roses. The scent remains. You think about the meal, not the food, the spice, the ceremony, the theft and trade and tiny empires behind every clove. You feel full, but not with meat. You are spiced, and therefore safe. The pig arrives like a warship, borne on a wooden plank the size of a small boat, flanked by 2 squires and a boy whose only job appears to be dramatically lifting the tapestry that conceals its entry. It is not merely a roast pig. It is the pig, golden, lacquered, shiny with its own ambitions. Its hooves have been buffed. Its ears curl like ornamental scrollwork. It smiles because someone arranged it that way. Its eyes, slightly glassy, suggest that digestion will be a negotiation. 1. You will not win. The apple in its mouth is absurdly red. Too red. You know it's a lie. It is not for eating. It is not for garnish. It is there to taunt. You consider removing it. You do not. The pig is watching. Someone announces the pig with a trumpet. Not a proper fanfare, just one flat note that sounds like someone sat on the horn. The pig is undisturbed. You suspect it orchestrated this. You are invited to carve it. This is not an honor. It is a challenge. The knife is placed in your hand by a man with calloused fingers and dead eyes. He says nothing. You stand. You approach. The pig smiles wider. You nod, out of respect. It does not nod back. You carve. The skin cracks like parchment, revealing layers of fat and meat, and something indefinable, possibly spiritual. Steam rises. Someone sighs. Someone else whispers a prayer. You place a slice on your plate. It glistens. It mocks. You sit. You try to begin a conversation with your neighbor about the weather. He is staring at the pig. You try to ask about the hunt last week. He gestures vaguely toward the pig and mutters something about omens. You nod. The pig watches. Your first bite is sublime. Rich, tender, faintly smoky, as though the animal spent its final hours basking in some forested afterlife. The apple's scent is misleading, sweet and harmless. But the meat beneath it is ancient, clever, and vaguely accusatory. You take another bite. It tastes like consequences. A bard begins to sing. Not about you, about the pig. It has a name now, Sir Porkalot. He tells a tale of its adventures. It once saved a village from famine by offering itself to a vision. It wrestled a wolf. It debated a bishop. It refused to be seasoned with anything less than saffron. Everyone claps. The pig does not. The tail is sliced and given to a merchant's wife who claims it brings fertility. She does not eat it. She places it in her purse. Her husband looks alarmed. The apple is removed ceremonially. It is placed on a pewter plate and set aside like a crown during a coronation. No one touches it. The pig looks smug. You eat more. The crackling is perfection. Crisp, sharp, and vaguely theological. A monk at the end of the table makes the sign of the cross before biting into his. He does not chew. He meditates. The pig's head remains untouched. Too sacred, too knowing. Someone suggests removing it. Someone else hisses. A child dares to poke it with a spoon. The spoon is taken. The child is taken. No one speaks of it again. You try to make eye contact with the roasted boar on the neighboring table. It looks away. More guests arrive late, citing traffic on the northern road. They are offered slices of pig. They decline. They eat fish instead. The pig takes note. Wine is poured. Red, spiced, slightly sweet. You drink. The pig does not blink. Conversation returns. Cautiously. Someone mentions a tournament. Someone else a new tax. You try to mention the weather again. The pig interrupts. Not verbally, but with presence. Its haunch glistens at the wrong moment. Someone chokes. A toast is made to its memory. The pig remains. You consider taking another slice. You hesitate. There are rules, unwritten and enforced by collective dread. You watch as a brave knight reaches for the cheek. The cheek is legendary. Tender, fatty, a treasure rarely shared. He hesitates. He falters. He chooses the belly instead. The pig approves. Dessert is offered but ignored. Candied walnuts, honeyed figs, a pie shaped like a castle. None of it matters. The pig has stolen the narrative. Sir Thomas the dog circles under the table. He is usually bold. Not today. He lies down beneath the bench and closes his eyes, pretending to nap, refusing to engage. Even he knows. You lean back in your chair. You are full, too full, the kind of full that speaks in proverbs. Your stomach recites them quietly. Pride goeth before indigestion. He who eats with swine shall dream of pigs. You nod. The bard finishes his song. The pig is now a legend. It once ended a war with its flavor. It once made a king cry. It once appeared in 3 separate visions across 5 villages. The bard is weeping. So is your aunt. The servants approach to clear the table. They hesitate before the pig. One bows. One apologizes. It is lifted gently, reverently, and borne away. The apple placed back in its mouth like punctuation. The table feels emptier than it should. The tapestry falls. The pig is gone. The silence lingers. You stare at your empty plate. You feel like you've read a very good book, one that ends with a question. You want to talk about it. No one does. You look around. Everyone is processing. The pig had the last word, and it said everything. The peacock arrives not on a platter but on a platform, as if it expects applause. It receives none, but that doesn't matter. The feathers shimmer unnaturally, glinting like accusations in jewel tones. Blue, green, purple, and something that might be gold or might be varnish. The bird's body has clearly been roasted, but the head is suspiciously lifelike. Its eyes are open, wide and glassy, with the expression of someone who once had power and has not yet accepted their fall from grace. No one eats the peacock. It's positioned in the center of the high table, flanked by fruits that exist solely for contrast. A pomegranate has been sliced artfully open beside it, bleeding onto a doily like a decorative crime scene. There is a ribbon tied around one leg. It is embroidered. You wonder if the bird had a name in life. You wonder if it demanded one in death. You are told this is not an entree. It is a display of abundance. You think of the pig. You think of the pigeon. You think of the pie that breathed. You are rapidly learning that nothing here is what it seems, except the bread, which is reliably terrible. The peacock glistens under the candlelight. Oil has been brushed across its roasted chest, creating an illusion of freshness, of vitality, of readiness. But no one reaches for it. No one moves. A boy approaches with a knife. He is not a servant. He is a guest, possibly a cousin, possibly a fool. His hand stretches toward the bird, and time slows. A murmur passes down the table, not a protest, just an acknowledgement. The way one might react to thunder in the distance or a door creaking open in an empty house. The boy touches a wing. Feathers shift. The bird does not move, but the atmosphere does. A steward steps forward without urgency, but with absolute purpose. He leans down. He whispers. The boy rises. He is not seen again. You hear later that he has joined a monastery 3 counties over, one of the stricter ones. Cold stone, no sauces, vows of silence, and porridge made from root vegetables and regret. No one speaks his name. No one needs to. The peacock watches. You stare at your own plate, where a less dramatic bird has been dissected and served with barley and raisins. It tastes like obedience. You chew slowly, carefully, as if to demonstrate your lack of ambition. The peacock gleams in your peripheral vision. Someone jokes that it would taste terrible anyway. Dry, stringy, perfumed like someone's aunt. Another person claims the feathers are reused each year, stored in a velvet-lined box with their own steward and a documented lineage. A third claims the bird isn't even real, that it's a wooden frame stuffed with something unholy and lacquered into performance. No one knows the truth. No one asks. That is not the point. The point is to look at the peacock and remember who you are not. The minstrels sing a song with too many verses about a knight who tried to eat one at a feast in York. He lost his title, his land, and his sense of smell. You do not know if it's a parable or just a warning wrapped in a melody. The knight's name rhymes with hubris. You take the hint. Your neighbor passes you a tray of artichoke hearts marinated in something spicy and seasonal. You take 2. They are excellent. You compliment the cook. He thanks the garden. You both pretend the peacock isn't there. The feathers shift in the breeze from a nearby window. They rustle softly. It sounds like silk being whispered about. You sip your wine and avoid the centerpiece. You suspect this is the correct etiquette. Across the hall, a visiting merchant tries to sketch it. He is using the wrong kind of ink. You wonder how long he'll last. The steward passes behind you, scenting the air like a wolf trained in discretion. He nods once at the peacock, once at your restraint. You are doing well. Someone at the far end of the room sneezes. The sneeze is directed vaguely in the peacock's direction. 3 people rise and leave. 1 returns. He looks paler, but wiser. His plate is filled with mashed parsnips and silence. A tray of desserts arrives. Honey cakes shaped like animals. Jellies that wobble with courtly dignity. One is molded to resemble a castle. You reach for a candied date. It sticks to your fingers and reminds you that joy is fleeting but sticky. You do not look at the peacock. It is still there. It has always been there. The torchlight softens. The feast winds down. People loosen their belts with quiet remorse. A noblewoman compliments the pottage. A young lord dozes against his goblet. The peacock does not fade. It remains luminous, untouched, serene in its absurdity. You wonder who decides when it leaves, who gathers the courage to lift it, feathered and sacred, and take it away. You wonder if they wear gloves. Eventually, a trio of servants arrives, silent and solemn. They do not make eye contact with anyone. One holds a box, one holds a cloth. The third carries a tiny silver rake. The removal takes minutes. The air shifts. The room exhales. You sit back, full of things you understand and one thing you do not. The table feels emptier, though nothing has changed. You drain your cup and let the mystery settle into your bones like spice. No one eats the peacock. That was never the point. The jelly arrives to a round of polite, anticipatory applause. Not from sincerity, but from obligation. Like when someone parades a new baby through a tavern, and everyone must pretend it looks like a blessing instead of a damp disappointment. It is tall, taller than any food should be, towering, regal, quivering with secrets. It is not the color of anything natural. Somewhere between translucent amber and medicinal regret, you can see things inside it. Suspended like flies in amber, there are carrots, not sliced, but sculpted into rude interpretations of flowers. Next to them, boiled eggs, halved and facing outward like watchful eyes. A fish, whole, bent unnaturally to fit inside the mold, mouth frozen open in what can only be described as eternal protest. At the very center, floating near the core like a lost soul, a sprig of parsley. You are told this is an honor. The jelly is an achievement. It took days to set. The kitchen staff has a monk among them now. He took a vow of silence after witnessing the aspic congeal in real time. You are expected to feel impressed. You do, but in the same way you're impressed when lightning hits a tree or someone drinks a candle. It shouldn't happen. And yet, a herald steps forward. He clears his throat. He announces the jelly's full name, Lord Wilfrid's Celebration of Plenty, with pike, turnip, and egg, set in veal aspic. The name lasts longer than the enthusiasm. The jelly jiggles at the end like it's laughing at you. You stare back. It wins. You are given a slice. It resists the knife, as if it knows. The texture is somewhere between cathedral window and cartilage. It wobbles on your plate with a sickly confidence. The fish glares at you. You cut a bite. It reforms. You try to smell it. It smells cold, not in the refreshing sense, but in the cryptic way of old wells and closed-off rooms. There is a hint of vinegar, a whisper of dill, and something unmistakably eggy. You take a bite. The taste is technically present. The fish is delicate, yes, but it has been diluted by the jelly into something spectral. The carrots crunch faintly, contributing only texture and a sense of participation. The eggs are just there, watching. The jelly itself is meat-flavored, because of course it is. It is made from bones and ambition. It coats your tongue like a lecture. You chew anyway. Chewing seems futile. You swallow. Time slows. You look up. Everyone else is pretending. Smiles like masks. Nods like threats. Across from you, your aunt mouths delightful while discreetly scraping her portion into her goblet. The goblet will never recover. Someone claps again. You join in. It is safer. A lord 2 seats down tries to compliment the jelly. His voice cracks. He says it is sturdy. This is accepted. The kitchen staff beams. You try not to meet their eyes. They are still too close to it. Too proud. Another slice is served. To a hound. The hound sniffs it once, whines, and walks away. He is not punished. Everyone understands. You take another bite. The jelly shivers. You are unsure if it's from your fork or from some internal awareness. This food knows things. This food has been places. It may, in fact, remember Rome. A child asks what the jelly is. His mother tells him it is art. He asks if he can color it. She does not answer. The fish stares at you from your plate. You chew more resolutely. The aspic clings to your teeth. You sip wine to help. It does not help. The wine is repelled. The jelly remains. Someone tells a story about a jellied boar head once served at a wedding in Kent. It was so large it had its own servant. The bride fainted. The groom married someone else. Everyone laughs. The jelly trembles ominously. Your neighbor suggests the jelly could be improved with more vinegar. Someone else says less fish. A third person says more courage. You say nothing. You have just found a pea embedded deep within your slice. You consider its journey. Dessert is mentioned. Eyes brighten. There is a hope, briefly, that the jelly is a transition and not a destination. But the steward corrects this. The jelly is the centerpiece. Dessert is merely an afterthought. The jelly is the poem. The rest is footnotes. A brave knight requests another slice. He is applauded. He may be drunk. The jelly grants him a piece, thick and trembling. He eats it solemnly, then recites a line from a poem about mortality. You think it is appropriate. The jelly leans, just slightly, like it is preparing to fall, but choosing not to. A philosophical jelly. You wonder what it thinks about. You wonder if it dreams. You finish your portion out of duty. The parsley resurfaces in your thoughts. Who put it there? Who decided a sprig was the soul of this gelatinous cathedral? You begin to ask, then stop. No one wants to know. As the final spoonful slides down your throat, you swear the room tilts. It may be your imagination. It may be the jelly exacting revenge. The servants arrive to remove the remains. They do so carefully, slowly, lifting the jelly as one lifts a fragile relic or a sleeping dragon. One drops his grip slightly. The jelly wobbles, affronted. He apologizes. The jelly accepts. It is carried out through a side door and into legend. You lean back. You are full, but not nourished. You are shaken. You glance around the table. Everyone looks like they've just survived something together. The bard begins to play again. Not a song of victory, a lament. You clap anyway. The jelly has left the room, but it will never truly leave. The servant places a small, ornate dagger beside your trencher and leaves without further comment. Next to it, nothing. No second implement. No gleaming fork. No three-pronged marvel of civilization. Just the knife and your God-given fingers, which tremble slightly with the weight of centuries. You glance down the table, hoping someone, anyone, has something resembling a modern utensil. But no. Everyone else is already elbow-deep in their courses, like saints performing edible miracles, lifting haunches and livers with practiced indifference. No one blinks. No one wipes. They simply carry on. You are told, quietly, that forks are foreign, dangerous, possibly papist, definitely Italian. You must never let yourself be seen using one, or risk rumors that you love geometry too much. One guest once brought a fork. She is now remarried to a Florentine, in exile. You look at your food. It is small, composed, and quietly malicious. A roasted quail leg, glistening with a suspicious glaze. It perches atop a mound of something green, possibly peas, possibly envy. It is meant to be elegant. You are meant to lift it with poise and bite into it delicately, without smearing your face in bird. You fail. The knife slips on the glaze. The quail performs a brief leap of faith, lands in your lap, and somehow stains fabric that has not touched sauce in 20 minutes. You laugh politely. The person beside you offers you a napkin. It is made of lace and judgment. Someone across the table is eating a pear. Slowly, with one hand. No blade, no motion, just pure commitment. The fruit softens in their palm like it was trained to. You don't see any teeth, but you know they're involved somehow. You try not to watch. It feels private. You return to your knife. You try again. The quail does not escape this time, but it resists, its tiny bones rebelling against division. You snap one by accident. It makes a sound like a violin string breaking. Someone to your left whispers, "Bravo." You do not feel brave. The sauce drips. You catch it. With your thumb, there is no shame. You are told this is how nobility eats, with fingers, with confidence, with soft, wet authority. The fingers must be visible. They must gleam with oils and roasted essence. Clean hands suggest illness or treason. The king once banned soap at table for a fortnight to catch a thief. It worked. The thief had clean hands. He now has none. Your fingers are no longer yours. They belong to the meal. You pick up a grape. It bursts. You pretend it was intentional. Someone offers you a fig. You decline. Figs are for dessert or subterfuge. You are not ready for either. The conversation turns to spices, as it always does. A duke complains about the rising price of cinnamon. Someone else says nutmeg is over. A third says cloves are the future. The table nods. You nod too. Your hands are too sticky to clap. You glance again at the quail. There is still meat left, but now it feels like a dare. You consider asking for a spoon. The room cools perceptibly. You do not ask. Instead, you grip the meat, tear gently, and bring it to your mouth in one motion. The sauce runs down your wrist. You are now part of the ritual. A servant bows. You think it's out of pity. It's probably respect. A young knight at the end of the table is carving a piece of trout using only his thumb and the flat edge of bread. It works. You feel both awe and disgust. He catches your eye. He winks. His hands are silver. He was knighted for this. There is a lull. Someone stands to make a toast. They raise a goblet with their forearm because their fingers are fully occupied with a pigeon wing. They spill a little wine. No one minds. The toast is to appetite, to joy, to fingers. Everyone cheers. The courses continue. A roasted root vegetable appears. It is uncuttable but yields to pressure like it knows its place. You squish it between thumb and forefinger. It makes a noise like defeat. You eat it anyway. A woman slices a plum with a dagger so thin it might be ceremonial. She places a segment on her tongue without using her hands. You look away. The bishop beside her crosses himself. No one speaks of it again. You are handed a wet cloth. It is warm. You use it on your hands, your arms, your dignity. A small basin is passed around. It contains lemon water and the faint suggestion of absolution. You dunk your fingers, feel reborn, then dry them on a cloth woven with fleurs de lis and the silent accusations of the underpaid. You are offered marzipan shaped like a knight's helm. You bite into it. It crumbles like a poorly made alliance, sweet and full of almonds. Someone else gets one shaped like a castle. He hesitates. It collapses before he can commit. Everyone nods solemnly. The meat tray is gone. The plates, if you can call slabs of bread that, have soaked up everything. They will be eaten by the hounds, or the monks, or possibly reused. You are not told. You are not supposed to ask. You lick one finger, discreetly. It tastes of time and scandal. You pretend it was an accident. Someone tries to describe the concept of a salad fork. The room falls silent. They are asked to step outside. They do. You do not hear the door close. The night begins to dim. Torches are lit. Candles sputter. The scent of grease clings to every hem and halo. You are full, but you are also changed. You now understand that dining here is not about eating. It is about spectacle, endurance, elbows, and fingers. Blessed, messy, noble fingers. You've lost all concept of time. The sun has moved. The shadows stretch across the hall like exhausted cats. Your goblet has been refilled so many times you suspect it's enchanted. Your seat is warm, not from comfort, but because your body has settled into it like dough. You don't remember the first dish, or the second. You only remember the moment the music slowed and the pies began their parade. There is no end. A goose pie arrives, golden and puffed, steaming like it contains secrets. You clap. Everyone claps. The pie is sliced. Steam escapes like it's trying to warn you. Inside, 2 smaller pies, nested, like dolls, but edible and judgmental. One holds a minced pigeon. The other, inexplicably, is custard. The flavors argue. You do not intervene. Then the venison pie. It's shaped like a crown. Someone whispers that it cost more than a vineyard. It smells like spice and ambition. When carved, the crust falls open to reveal meat so tender, it apologizes for being hunted. You chew slowly. It feels intimate. Another pie arrives. It's jiggling. You pray it's not jelly again. It's not. It's eel, curled into spirals like nature's version of a cautionary tale. The crust crackles under your fork, and the eel looks at you from beneath the surface like it remembers your dreams. You're sweating, not from heat, but from density. Everything is too rich, too spiced, too layered. You glance down the table. A noblewoman has stopped blinking. Her eyes are glazed. Someone checks her pulse and gently fans her with a pheasant wing. She recovers, just in time for the next pie. This one sings. At first, you think it's the wine. But no. Music, actual music, is coming from the pie. It is wheeled in with ceremony. Trumpets blare. The crust is lifted carefully, reverently, and a man with a lute climbs out. His hair is powdered. His expression is resigned. He begins to play. The tune is jaunty. The pie is declared interactive. You nod like that explains everything. You are tired. Not sleepy. Existentially tired. A kind of fatigue reserved for those who have eaten multiple animals in a single sitting. A squire attempts to count the courses aloud. He stops at 30. His eyes go glassy. A monk whispers something about gluttony. No one listens. A server places a hand pie on your trencher. It's warm. It leaks slightly. It smells of ham and too many herbs. You stare at it. It stares back. You take a bite. Regret follows, soft and buttery. There is a roast coming. You hear it before you see it. A crackling skin, the chant of kitchen boys, a slight sizzle. It's boar, decorated with cherries and something that might be gold leaf. It has teeth. Still, they've been polished. Someone says it's the same boar from last week, just reconfigured. You believe them. You sip wine. It doesn't help. It tastes like spice and resignation. A child 2 seats down is asleep on a meat tart. No one wakes him. He's at peace. More pie. This one is fish. A whole fish. Inside a crust. Its tail sticks out proudly, like it's fleeing mid-bake. The eyes have been replaced with cloves, for flair. You're too weak to resist. You try it. It's acceptable. Which feels like betrayal. There's a pause. A lull in courses. You allow yourself to hope. Maybe it's over. Maybe dessert is next. Maybe you will rise from this bench and walk again. A new pie is set down. It's large. Larger than the lute player pie. The crust is painted with scenes of hunting and triumph. You blink. You swear one of the scenes shows your own dinner. It is unclear if the pie is mocking you or celebrating itself. Inside, peacocks, several, layered, cooked, and refeathered. They do not taste good. They taste like vanity and rosewater. But you eat them because the man beside you is watching. You are in this together. You are survivors. Time no longer exists. The hall glows orange with torchlight. You have eaten enough to feed a village, possibly a nation. A jug of gravy is passed to you. You decline. It is refilled anyway. Dessert is threatened. You brace yourself. A tart appears. It is filled with honey and almonds and something called angel's breath. You do not ask. You take a bite. It sticks to your teeth like a promise. Another tart. Apple, clove, regret. A custard follows. Thin, sweet, and too warm. It clings to the spoon like it doesn't want to be here either. Someone jokes about fasting. No one laughs. Your neighbor has slumped. You are unsure if he's sleeping or simply resigned. A servant gently places a napkin over his head. You think this is symbolic. You do not ask. You dab your mouth. You are composed. You have survived. The table groans. The pies are reduced to crusts and memories. Someone sings a closing hymn. It is mostly humming. You push back your chair. Your knees make a sound. Your stomach declares independence. The feast is over. For now, the cake is wheeled in with a fanfare that rattles the spoons. You are not ready. No one is. The air thickens with anticipation and icing sugar. A procession of boys in matching tights lead the way, each holding something vaguely celebratory. A banner, a spoon, a roasted almond. The cake follows, grand and improbable, a towering castle of flour and ambition. It shimmers under the torchlight like it knows it's the climax. It smells of nutmeg and danger. The base is a moat, gelatin, blue, wobbling ominously with every step. The drawbridge is biscuit. There are flags, real ones, embroidered. The towers spiral upward in tiers of sponge and sugar, defying gravity, logic, and the memory of simpler desserts. You squint. Is that a dragon? It is. The dragon is sugar, but alive in spirit. It perches on the highest turret, wings outstretched, eyes made of raisins or small rubies. Its mouth opens. Someone beside you mutters a warning. Too late. The dragon exhales a thin puff of cinnamon-scented flame. It burns briefly, bright and theatrical, scorching a nearby napkin and the concept of moderation. You do not clap. You nod, slowly, respectfully. The priest makes the sign of the cross, possibly for the cake, possibly for all of you. A horn sounds. From within the cake, it splits, gently, like a curtain. Two halves glide open on hidden wheels, revealing an interior stage and a pair of sugar sculptures mid-duel. Knights. One wears marzipan armor, polished to a sheen. The other has spun sugar wings, which feel like an unfair advantage. They move in jerky, mechanical fashion, clashing swords made of hardened caramel. One loses an arm. It bounces off the table and lands in someone's lap. She keeps it. A nobleman whispers, "It's symbolic." You ask, "Of what?" He just smiles, the way rich people do when they've had more wine than reflection. The priest declares it a lesson in humility. Or gluttony. He's not sure anymore. He has frosting on his collar and a vague expression of defeat. You are asked to slice it. This is an honor, or a test, or a trap. You rise. A ceremonial knife is presented to you. It is far too long and far too heavy. You raise it like you've trained for this moment. You haven't. The table hushes. Someone somewhere hums a hymn. You plunge the blade into the outer wall of the cake castle. It collapses, immediately and without dignity, into a heap of sponge and regret. A gasp. Then applause. The cake is not dead. It is served. Each slice is a different flavor. No two match. Yours tastes like clove, orange, and the memory of a debt unpaid. Someone else's is almond and rosewater. Another claims theirs is beef. No one challenges this. It is the Middle Ages. Anything is possible. The sugar knights are distributed to children. They fight again, briefly, on the floor. The marzipan one is eaten. The winged one ascends to a windowsill and waits. You chew slowly. Your mouth is full of architecture. There is a piece of rampart lodged in your molar. You try to remove it discreetly with the tip of your tongue, but it fights back. Your tongue yields. This, too, is symbolic. The gelatin moat has begun to melt. It spreads across the table, creeping into the cracks between platters and lives. A servant attempts to stop it with a pewter goblet. It fails. The gelatin claims a trench of raisins and part of the linen. It is never spoken of again. A man stands to praise the baker. He quotes a saint or a menu. He weeps slightly, overwhelmed by the emotion of the sponge to icing ratio. You raise your goblet in solidarity, unsure what you're toasting anymore. Dessert continues. Someone brings out candied fennel seeds in a silver bowl the size of a helmet. You take a pinch. They crunch like broken promises and taste like soap made by a liar. You eat more. Then comes the marchpane animals, a whole menagerie of almond-based beasts. Lions, doves, a possibly theoretical giraffe. You are handed a hedgehog. Its spines are cloves. You nibble its ear. It crumbles. The priest nods at you. This means something. At the far end of the table, a servant holds aloft what appears to be a pie. Inside the pie, another pie. Inside that, a small scroll. It reads, simply, "Repent." You briefly consider it. A child asks if there will be another cake. The room falls silent. The musicians stop mid-note. An owl hoots outside, confused by the tension. The child is led gently away and handed a date stuffed with almonds and absolution. You lean back in your chair. Your stomach makes a sound you choose to interpret as victory. The table is chaos. Crumbs, frosting, broken forks, a hint of mint. The sugar dragon lies in pieces. Someone pockets its wing. You say nothing. The fire in the hearth flickers. The cake's message lingers in the air. Wealth is a performance. Subtlety is a lie. You sip wine thick with spice. It coats your tongue like an oath. You pray, not for mercy, for digestion. Your breath is not your own. It belongs to the violets now. Soft, powdered violets boiled gently into your wine, like someone trying to perfume your soul from the inside out. You sip and feel delicate. You swallow and feel floral. You cough and bees investigate you. The cook says it's fashionable. The apothecary says it's healthful. The steward says nothing, because his tongue is stained purple from an incident with mulberry jam and dignity, and he has taken a vow of silence until both return. You suspect the violets are not optional. Neither was the rosewater. It's in everything. It's in the custard. It's in the stew. It's in the air. It clings to your fingers and your pillow and possibly your dreams. You have not smelled meat in 3 days. Only petals and politics. Garlic is for the poor. It lingers on the breath like honesty. It clings like sweat. It betrays. You used to like it. Once. Long ago. Before you owned more than one kind of goblet. Back when your meals came in bowls, not sculptures. Back when eating was for hunger. Back when your lips weren't constantly coated in someone else's concept of luxury. You haven't tasted garlic in years. You think about it sometimes. Not fondly, not wistfully, but with a kind of rebellious curiosity, the way some nobles think about walking. Your servant leans close. He is new. His breath carries a hint of something you cannot place, something sharp and real and alive, something that has not been distilled into water or preserved in sugar. It hits you like a memory. Your knees go soft. You sit down, involuntarily. The room tilts. You are not fainting, technically. You are just very dramatically adjusting your altitude. Garlic. Someone hisses, scandalized. The servant is gone before he finishes his bow. He'll be fine, probably. Sent to the kitchens or the fields or the monastery. Somewhere the roses do not bloom in broth. Somewhere the chickens are still chickens and not concepts. Somewhere one may speak without scenting the air first. You are offered a towel soaked in lavender. You press it to your face. It does nothing. The garlic remains, hovering in your mind like a ghost with excellent seasoning. You are not angry, just shaken. Your next course arrives. Pears in rose syrup, scattered with gold flakes. The pears have been poached for 3 days and look surprised to still be here. The gold is not for eating, technically, but you eat it anyway. You are rich. You will eat beauty until it kills you. You take a bite. The pear sighs under your teeth. The syrup clings to your lips. You lick it away and taste roses and regret. The table smells like a garden. Every platter, every goblet, every handkerchief. You watch a nobleman sneeze into a cloth embroidered with jasmine petals and social class. He apologizes to no one. His sneeze smells better than most weddings. You begin to feel hostile. Your fingers are sticky with honey and lavender. The bread smells of time and status. A bowl of rice is brought in, perfumed with saffron and orange blossom. You lean closer. You cannot find the rice beneath the fragrance. You eat a spoonful and chew on aroma. It tastes like inheritance. You wonder what your peasants are eating right now. You picture thick stews with onions and things that bite. Raw leeks. Coarse bread with flavor not invented in a perfumery. Cheese that sweats like a man. You do not want it. But you do not want it. You drink more wine. It is pink and tastes like petals and compromise. A server brings a duck, stuffed with quince, glazed in rose vinegar. The duck looks ashamed. You do not blame it. You eat it with a spoon. The fat clings to your tongue and refuses to leave. Like a minor noble with a lute. You drink again. The wine does nothing. You are trapped inside a botanical garden wearing a tongue. Someone nearby requests mint. The table sighs with relief. The mint arrives in a dish carved from ice. It is sprinkled with sugar and virtue. You take a leaf. It helps, slightly. You pretend it helps more than it does. You smile. Everyone smiles. This is what politeness smells like. You begin to plan. Nothing dramatic. You're not going to run away to the garlic fields, but perhaps a picnic, a private one, with hard cheese and coarser bread and a single clove hidden like contraband. You'll eat it in secret, perhaps in the stables. Let the horses judge you. They already do. For now, you eat another petal. It tastes like prestige. You do not faint again. But it's a close thing. The cheese arrives with no warning, no fanfare. Just a quiet procession of plates and a flicker of apprehension from the servants, like they know what's about to happen and can't stop it. You sit straighter. This is the moment your ancestors feared. The tray is round, of course, because symbolism is important and medieval geometry hasn't invented corners yet. It glistens faintly, as if someone has lovingly buffed the cheeses into submission. You count them. 6, 7, 8. They blur together in a slow-moving dairy kaleidoscope, each one more pungent than the last, each daring you to have opinions. There is a soft one, pale, yielding. It folds under your knife like a compliment from someone who wants land. It smells of cream and indecision. You try it first, because you are not brave, just hungry. It melts on your tongue and vanishes without protest. You think, briefly, of clouds, then of cows, then of taxes. You move on. The second cheese is blue, not metaphorically. It is blue like bruises, like ambition, like mold. Had a dream and followed it. You hesitate. It stares back, bold and defiant. You do not look away. You take a bite. Your mouth fills with storm clouds. It is salty, sharp, and deeply personal. This cheese knows things. You have confided in no one, yet you are being judged. You chew with the solemnity of a penitent monk and nod at no one in particular. The third cheese is moving. You blink. It blinks back. Or perhaps that was a twitch. Either way, the platter seems slightly more animated than comfort allows. A servant shifts behind you and mumbles something about tradition and protein. You prod the cheese with the tip of your knife. It quivers. You both pretend this is normal. You try a small piece. It does not resist. It explodes. Not with sound, but with sensation, like a battlefield of bacteria declaring sovereignty over your taste buds. It tastes of old wood, iron, and hubris. You have aged a decade. You glance down and wonder when your hands became those of your father. A small applause breaks out. You don't know why. A monk nearby whispers something in Latin. You don't translate. You are busy negotiating with your soul. The fourth cheese is hard. Not in the usual sense. In the could-be weaponized sense. It is dense, beige, and unapologetically silent. You chip a corner with your knife, and it echoes. You try to chew it, but it tries back. It wins. Your jaw reconsiders its life choices. You swallow, carefully, and smile with the kind of grace only money can buy. There is a fifth cheese. No one touches it. It is triangular and smells like old sermons. It may not be cheese. It may be a relic. It may be watching you. The sixth cheese is red. You are not sure how or why. It is glossy and smooth and smells faintly of plums and fear. You try a bite. It's oddly sweet. The texture is wrong. Someone says pressed fruit and goat. You do not know if they mean together or sequentially. You nod as if you understand. You don't. None of you do. The seventh is your favorite. You know this without tasting it. It's small, round, and wrapped in something that looks expensive. It comes with a tiny spoon and a smaller sense of purpose. You scoop, delicately, like a duchess stealing gossip. It is divine, creamy, complex, confusing. It tastes like velvet and inheritance. You relax. You sigh. You immediately suspected of betrayal. The eighth cheese has no name, just a story, a shepherd, a cave, a vision. You nod before you even see it. It is soft, then firm, then soft again, like regret. You taste it. It is beautiful, then terrible, then beautiful again. You are crying. You do not know why. The cheese does. There is bread, somewhere, but it's decorative. No one touches it. The crackers are thin and ashamed. You spread cheese with a ceremonial knife. It was once used in battle, probably. The room smells of funk and fortunes. You can feel your ancestors applauding and wincing in equal measure. Across the table, a noble is licking something off his thumb. It is either cheese or theology. He looks blessed. The priest says a prayer, not for salvation, for digestion. You finish your plate. The cheeses blur together now, a chorus of complexity and cow. You lean back in your chair, dazed and enlightened. You have tasted centuries. You have failed nothing except moderation. Your breath is a weapon. Your heart is full. Your stomach has questions. You burp. It smells like culture. Your pear arrives on a pillow. Not a metaphor, a real pillow. Silk, embroidered, probably once used by someone royal, now demoted to supporting produce. The pear glows faintly in the torchlight, its skin dusted with something that looks like powdered sunlight and tastes like wealth. You squint. It's gold, edible gold. You've been told this several times, as though that clarifies anything. A page boy places it gently before you like he's surrendering a relic. He bows and backs away, eyes averted, in case the pear starts talking. You don't even like pears. Not really. You've always found them suspiciously soft or suspiciously hard, never just agreeable. But this one is golden. Not metaphorically blessed or poetically gilded, just literally gold. A fruit dipped in the economy of 3 villages. It winks at you. You prepare your mouth. The first bite is awkward. You go too cautious, unsure of how teeth are meant to approach precious metal. You nibble like a vole. The taste is fine. It's a pear. Juicy, delicate, vaguely floral. The gold adds nothing except consequence. You nod appreciatively, because you are being watched by 4 minstrels, a notary, and one man whose only job appears to be observes fruit consumption. The second bite is better. You're bolder now. This is your destiny, to consume affluence in its most inconvenient form. A herald clears his throat, then announces your apple. The apple is wheeled in on a platter the size of a small canoe, accompanied by 3 ladies in waiting and a lute solo. It sparkles. You think it's just lighting trickery. But no. The apple has been encrusted with sugar crystals and what might be diamonds. You are not entirely sure you are still in the realm of food. You eat it anyway. You've learned by now not to ask questions. Richness is often indistinguishable from punishment, but it is always served hot. The apple crunches like ambition. The sugar lacerates your gums in a gentle, expensive way. You suspect your dentist hasn't been born yet. This is probably for the best. Across the table, a noblewoman peels her grape. She does not eat it. She just peels it, slowly, luxuriously, like it's a prayer. You understand. Sometimes decadence is not about consumption. It is about domination. You are handed a pomegranate next, but not handed, exactly. It is revealed. A man with a trumpet announces it by name. The most radiant orb of Persephone, he says, his voice shaking with emotion or hunger or both. A curtain parts. The pomegranate is on a pedestal. It glows like scandal. You are expected to react. You nod. This is not enough. You applaud. The pomegranate is carried toward you by twin maidens dressed in identical silks. They move as one, their eyes fixed ahead, their hands cupping the fruit like it's a sacred egg. You feel inadequate. You feel regal. You feel like maybe fruit isn't supposed to make you feel this many things. The pomegranate is already sliced open, delicately, surgically. Its seeds glisten like rubies, each one cradled in a web of white like stained glass, had a child with desire. A poet steps forward and begins to recite an ode. You try to listen, but the room smells of cinnamon and vanity, and it's hard to focus. You pluck a seed, you chew, you are overwhelmed. The juice bursts in your mouth like betrayal and wedding vows. It is tart, then sweet, then tart again. You chew the bitterness with pleasure. You are not sure where your taste buds end and your soul begins. The poet is still talking. You nod solemnly. A servant appears with a bowl of figs. They have been stuffed with almonds and marzipan and history. The figs are warm. You do not know how. Someone says, sun-kissed, as if that explains things. You eat one. It is both chewy and philosophical. You feel a strange urge to confess something. There is a pause. A mango appears. You do not know what a mango is. You try to act unfazed. You observe it closely, as if waiting for it to explain itself. It does not. A monk approaches to whisper that it is from the east, carried by 3 caravans and 4 camel complaints. It is rare, possibly illegal. You must try it. You comply. The mango is soft, golden, and slightly perfumed. It tastes like secrets and incense. It clings to your tongue with missionary enthusiasm. You are unsure if you are allowed to like it this much. You do anyway. Someone claps. The banana arrives late. It is underdressed. It is not covered in gold. It is not jewel-studded. It is just a banana. The table falls into awkward silence. You are not sure what to do with it. You eat it with quiet rebellion. No one meets your eyes. Someone whispers that the banana is a statement. You don't ask what kind. You are too full of symbolism. By the end of the course, your teeth are sticky with metaphor. Your hands are dusted in gold. You are not certain you have consumed nutrition, only narrative. You do not feel healthy. You feel legendary. You burp softly. A musician plays a chord in sympathy. This is fruit, you think. This is power in pulp form. This is why peasants eat turnips. Because your oranges wear saffron and your lemons arrive with witnesses. You do not ask for more. You do not need to. A plum arrives, already knowing. The pudding does not jiggle. It looms. It enters the hall not carried, but escorted, flanked by 2 stewards in velvet and fear. One holds a ceremonial spoon. The other holds nothing, as if prepared to bolt. A hush falls over the table. You realize, with the kind of clarity usually reserved for prophecy, that this pudding is not dessert. It is a reckoning. The smell reaches you before the pudding does. It is dense, ancestral, vaguely smoky, faintly tragic. Notes of mutton, clove, regret. A whisper of oats. Someone across the table stifles a sob. A monk bows his head. You were promised something called pudding. You pictured sweetness, custard, plums, perhaps a dainty finale to a meal already bloated with poultry and pageantry. But no, this is medieval England. Pudding is not a category. It is a challenge. The pudding is placed before you. It steams with purpose. A crust of suet glistens with an intensity that makes you flinch. You wonder if it's breathing. You wonder if it can see you. A liver-based entity, this emotionally present, must have an opinion. Your knife bends slightly on contact, not dramatically, just enough to suggest dominance. You switch to sawing. The interior is a map of sorrow. Shades of brown so dark they threaten to collapse into themselves. There are raisins. They are not helping. You take a bite. You immediately question every choice you have made that led to this moment. The flavor unfolds slowly, like an old betrayal. It is spiced, yes, but in the way one might spice a funeral. You detect nutmeg, or mace, possibly both. There is barley, definitely blood, a hint of coin. You chew with the quiet endurance of a man being knighted against his will. No one speaks. A minstrel begins to sing a ballad. You are unsure if it's about the pudding or directed at it. The lyrics contain the word valor 3 times. You do not feel valiant. You feel like your stomach is making a will. Across the table, someone smiles. You suspect it's a trap or madness. The pudding is already halfway through their plate. They are chewing with reverence or resignation. They may have served in a war. You do not ask. Your servant refills your goblet. Not wine, not ale, just water. Cold, unjudging water. It cannot save you, but it tries. You sip with gratitude. The pudding does not approve. Its edges seem sharper now. You try to look busy. You move pudding around on your plate with a practiced elegance, arranging it into symbols of plausible consumption. A bird, a tree, a slightly overwhelmed face. No one is fooled. The steward approaches. He asks if you require seconds. You consider leaping out the window. It is not high enough for your purposes. You decline. He nods with the quiet understanding of someone who, too, has tasted legacy. He takes the pudding away. You could swear it glares back over his shoulder. A discussion begins about the pudding's heritage. One man claims it dates back to Roman times. Another says it was invented during a siege. A third insists it's a cure for sin. Everyone nods. No one finishes their serving. The kitchen sends out a sweet pudding next. Lighter, they say. A gesture of apology or escalation. You're unsure. It is filled with dates, breadcrumbs, and something that crunches suspiciously. You pray it's almonds. You eat it because the first pudding broke your defenses. This one merely confuses you. The texture is moist. The flavor is dense. You cannot define it. It defies category. It is neither cake nor sausage, neither joy nor sorrow. It is simply pudding. You accept this now, the way one accepts weather. The jester returns. He juggles oranges. One of them lands in the sweet pudding. No one laughs. The pudding absorbs the orange. The jester bows anyway. A priest blesses the leftovers. You're not sure whether for spiritual protection or safe disposal. The pudding is taken away, covered in cloth, like a body. You exhale for the first time in minutes. Your jaw aches. Your soul feels marinated. There is a sticky spot behind your molars that hums with molasses and protest. The meal moves on to candied walnuts, but you can no longer taste sweetness, only memory. You realize something profound. Pudding is not a dish. It is a test. A medieval rite of passage disguised as food. You have survived it, barely. You are not the same. The fire in the hearth crackles politely. The wine returns. A lute plays something haunting. You suspect it's a dirge for your digestion. You stare into your empty plate. The pudding is gone, but it is not over. Your sugar self arrives on a silver tray borne by 2 small boys in matching tunics and existential dread. The sculpture is startlingly accurate, down to the noble curve of your nostril and the faint pout of someone who once asked a servant to iron their gloves. The sugar glistens under torchlight, polished and pale, like your forehead during moments of minor distress. You nod graciously, as if this likeness were expected, inevitable, a natural consequence of your importance. Inside, you are alarmed. It has dimples you didn't know you had. The room applauds. A few nobles murmur their approval, eyes flicking between the sculpture and your actual face, trying to decide which seems more edible. One leans closer. She has opinions. She says the sugar you is regal, but approachable. You thank her with a smile, honed in diplomacy and mild nausea. The steward offers you a knife. It's small, gold, ceremonial. You hold it like a weapon, which in some ways it is. Around you, a silence thickens. Expectant, reverent, sweet. Someone plays a soft note on a harp. It's unclear if the note was meant for you or the sculpture. Either way, it echoes too long. You begin with the nose. It seems the safest part to lose. The nostrils crumble like a small avalanche of royal insecurity. It tastes like honey, rosewater, and fear. The texture is confusing, granular and waxy. You chew politely. No one mentions that sugar sculptures are mostly for looking. Everyone knows. No one stops you. A page arrives with a napkin embroidered with your family crest. It's slightly sticky already. You dab the corner of your mouth like you've just spoken something poetic, not devoured your own facial cartilage. Across the table, a man named Eustace watches with undisguised hunger. You suspect he would eat your sugar ears without invitation. You clutch the knife more tightly. Other nobles are receiving their own portraits in confection. A lord from the south holds a sugar bust of himself triumphantly, as though he's conquered it. His has a licorice cravat. He licks it delicately, like a man tasting his own ambition. A child receives a sugar unicorn with their own face. The child is delighted. The unicorn looks exhausted. Your sugar self begins to sag slightly. The heat from the fire, the moist tension of the feast, and possibly your own existential dread are melting your brows. A droplet forms on the tip of your sculpture's chin and slides down with the slow drama of a single noble tear. You consider calling it performance art. You ask quietly what it's made of. The steward informs you that it's a blend of refined cane sugar imported from Venice, a whisper of almond paste, 3 hairs from a holy donkey, and a stabilizer made of beeswax and very gentle lies. You nod as if this makes sense. You do not understand a single part of it. Behind you, the jester offers commentary. He says things like, "Oh look, he's sugarcoating his own ego," and "that one's eating himself alive," and "art imitates lunch." No one laughs. The jester laughs enough for everyone. Someone throws a grape. The jester catches it in his mouth and bows deeply. You return to the sculpture. The cheeks are overly rosy. You suspect the confectioner got carried away or insulted. You take a cautious bite. The sweetness assaults you. Cloying, sticky, insistent. You feel your teeth panic slightly. Your tongue goes numb. It is unclear whether from sugar or shame. A priest blesses the table. He does not look at your sugar face. You are grateful. The blessing mentions moderation, then forgiveness, then gluttony. Everyone nods solemnly and eats more. The lower half of your sugar face is now gone. What remains is the vacant, brittle forehead of a statue trying to remember who it was. You are reminded vaguely of your cousin Gerald. You always suspected Gerald of being hollow inside. Now you understand he was just early. The boys retrieve the remaining shards of your face and place them gently in a crystal box. This, they tell you, is for later. You do not ask when later is. You suspect it's a metaphor. You smile and thank them, your real face slightly more brittle than before. Around you, the table buzzes with sugar philosophy. One guest suggests that eating your own likeness is the highest form of self-reflection. Another insists it's a metaphor for nobility devouring itself from within. A third simply keeps licking his sugar beard. No one stops him. You are offered candied violets next. You accept out of fear. They melt on your tongue like a floral apology for what just occurred. You sip wine. The wine does nothing. It is too dry to understand sugar trauma. Someone tries to toast to your likeness. They say, "To the sweetest face in the kingdom." You raise your goblet but avoid eye contact. You do not want to know if they mean the sculpture or you. The sculpture is gone. Only the eyes remain, slightly melted, slightly off-center, staring into the middle distance like someone who's seen too many banquets and not enough meaning. You look away. Dessert continues. Someone brings a sugar tower shaped like a cathedral. It collapses slowly, like faith under scrutiny. Everyone claps. You sit quietly, your mouth coated in something golden and unanswerable. You miss bread. You have already eaten 6 desserts, but the 7th arrives with the energy of a debutante and the confidence of a tax collector. It is a tart, the color of secrets, filled with gooseberries so plump they look like they've never known hardship. The crust glistens with something described only as court sugar, a substance you suspect comes from the tears of merchants. The tart is placed before you with a flourish. It winks. You're not imagining it. You consider resisting, but resistance is peasant behavior. You are nobility. You lean in. The tart speaks to you. Not aloud. That would be madness. But with its presence, its aroma, the way the filling shifts ever so slightly, as if adjusting to impress you. It is, frankly, seductive. You take one bite. The crust is shattering delicacy. The filling is sweet and sour, and a little cruel. You are bewitched. You don't care who knows. A nearby baron clears his throat as if to say, "Steady on," but his fingers are trembling over a marzipan lute, so he has no moral authority. You make eye contact with the tart. A connection is forged. You contemplate a life together, perhaps in a modest countryside estate with an herb garden and low taxes. You, the wealthy aristocrat with excellent taste in confections. The tart, your clever tart-tongued partner, always slightly sticky, always honest. You realize you've been staring at it too long. A squire coughs pointedly. You remember who you are. You are rich. You are full. You are weak. You move on to a comfit. The tiny, hardened sugar pearls hiding some kind of seed inside, possibly fennel, possibly remorse. They crunch like tiny judgments. You try to smile at a passing noblewoman, but she sees your molars coated in pink glaze and turns away in horror or envy. Possibly both. You don't blame her. You no longer look like someone who makes good decisions. Another tart arrives. This one is made of cherries and ambition. You do not recall requesting it. You do not recall requesting anything, ever. Food simply materializes in front of you like debt. A child made of spun sugar is placed on top. The child has no eyes, only gold leaf. You eat around it carefully, unsure whether it is cursed or just fashionable. Your plate is taken before you finish. It is replaced with marzipan, molded into little hedgehogs, snails, a bishop, and what might be your uncle, if your uncle were made entirely of almond paste and bad opinions. You pop one into your mouth and immediately regret it. The texture is both gritty and suggestive. You chew with the patience of someone hoping to survive something noble. Someone beside you asks if you've tried the quince jelly. You haven't. It arrives seconds later in the shape of a fish. The fish has a lemon slice for a tail and what appears to be a raisin for an eye. You contemplate your own mortality. You eat the eye. It winks, metaphorically. The gooseberry tart is still watching. You swear it's closer than before. You pretend not to notice. A pudding parade begins. You thought puddings were over. You were wrong. These are sweet puddings, dessert puddings, puddings reborn. One is soaked in honey and regret. Another smells of lavender and political scandal. A third is aflame. No one explains why. The steward simply says, "Tradition," and moves on. You try to rise discreetly from the table. Your body does not agree. Your stomach sighs like an old knight laying down his sword. You sink back into your seat and smile weakly at the man across from you, who is feeding tiny candied pears to a taxidermied squirrel in ceremonial armor. He nods solemnly, as if this exchange is perfectly ordinary. It might be. Another marzipan hedgehog. You name this one Hubert. You bite its head off quickly, so you don't form an attachment. There is an announcement. Dessert is not over. Dessert has not even begun. What you've been experiencing is merely the pre-dessert, the amuse sugar, the overture to the main act. The servants roll out a cake the size of your dignity. It is tiered. It is trembling. It hums with the quiet threat of collapse. On the top is a knight made entirely of licorice, battling a dragon fashioned from spun sugar and edible rubies. The dragon breathes clove-scented smoke. The knight falls. Symbolism. The cake is cut with a ceremonial sword last used in an actual duel. The crumbs fly like noble confetti. You are given a slice that contains a jewel. This is apparently good luck. You do not feel lucky. You feel full, but you eat it anyway. The frosting tastes like triumph and anemia. You nod graciously and chew slowly, hoping the jewel is not a choking hazard. Somewhere, someone begins singing. It is not clear if the song is about dessert, or if the dessert has triggered a spiritual awakening. You cannot tell anymore. You look at the tart again. It is still there. You reach for it without thinking. You do not marry the tart, but it is a close thing. It leaves you with crumbs on your lap and a feeling of deep, aching satisfaction. You suspect this is love, or something similar. A final course arrives, rose petal jam. You spread it on toast that was once a biscuit, once a promise. The jam is delicate, floral, unnecessary. You eat it all. You have no memory of restraint. You are a creature of sugar and shame. The feast winds down. People lean back in their chairs, sighing with the heaviness of wealth and excessive glucose. The gooseberry tart is gone. You don't know when it left. You hope it's happy. Someone suggests a digestive walk. You pretend not to hear. You cannot move. A servant clears your plate. It is replaced with another comfit. You stare at it for a long time. It stares back. You try to stand. Your knees betray you immediately. They give a little courtesy bow to the floor, and then think better of it. You remain seated, though the chair now feels like a throne made of molasses and ancestral obligation. Your body is no longer yours. It belongs to the feast, to the cakes and sugared pears and treasonous custards that have taken up residence in your bloodstream, like squatters with bad table manners. Your arms hang at your sides like wet laundry. Your stomach sings a low hymn of regret. Your spine creaks. You are 27 years old. You feel 400. Across the table, someone is asleep with their eyes open. It may be your cousin. It may be you, reflected in a gravy boat. Hard to tell. You whisper, ginger water, a request, a prayer, a lifeline. Your voice sounds like a crushed mint leaf, fragile, aromatic, barely functional. A servant bows so deeply their hat falls into the pudding. You watch it sink. It feels symbolic. The ginger water does not arrive. What arrives is wine, somewhere between tepid and confusing, with a single slice of ginger floating in it like a shipwreck survivor pretending to be fine. You sip. It tastes like someone once described ginger to a grape. You collapse back into your chair with the dignity of a melted candle. Your robes fold around you like a disappointed parent. A flute player hits a sour note, or possibly your pancreas does. You are not sure where one ends and the other begins. Someone attempts conversation. You hear your name, spoken in the cautious tone of someone checking if the deer is dead. You smile faintly, which seems to be enough. The conversation moves on. You catch snippets about falcons, gout, and a noblewoman who recently married a statue. It was a tasteful statue. You attempt to lift your goblet. It weighs as much as your sins. You set it down with the softness of a final decision. You think, briefly, of walking to the garden. You imagine fresh air, cold stone, the distant sound of an owl judging you. But the floor is far away, and you are not entirely sure your feet still exist. You haven't seen them since the second pudding. Your fingers tingle, possibly from circulation, possibly from marzipan-induced ecstasy. You cannot be sure. A knight slaps another knight with a candied eel. It is not a duel, exactly. It is more of a declaration of digestion. Everyone laughs. You nod along, vaguely aware that laughter requires muscles you cannot currently locate. The dog. Sir Tiddlewick, Knight of the Velvet Cushion, leaps onto the table and begins licking the inside of a pastry swan. No one stops him. He is a noble. You make eye contact. There is understanding. He, too, has eaten beyond the realm of consequence. A page approaches with more tarts. You do not scream. You simply raise one finger, trembling and uncertain, and he veers away like a ship avoiding rocks. You are the rocks. You feel powerful. You breathe shallowly. Your ribcage expands with effort, like an accordion too full of secrets. There is a small dollop of rose jam on your cuff. You consider licking it. You do not. You are not a peasant. Your head tilts back. The ceiling is painted with angels. One of them is holding a ham. It watches you with serene pity. You wonder if you are dying. Not in a tragic, poetic way. In a real, gastrointestinally specific way. You wonder if this is how your grandfather went. At peace, bloated, surrounded by ornamental sugar beasts and lightly scented servants. A good death for a man of stature. Someone calls for dancing. The words echo around the room like a threat. You see 3 people rise, wobble, and return to their seats with the same expression you imagine soldiers wore at the end of long sieges. A lute begins to play a sprightly tune. You hate it. You feel betrayed by its optimism. A servant refills your goblet. You do not stop them. You are noble. Nobles do not refuse refills. You sip again. The ginger is now gone. The wine tastes like expensive defeat. There is a moment of silence. A collective pause. You think the feast might be over. Then a roast peacock is wheeled in, fully feathered, fully judged. You consider weeping. Instead, you lower your face into your napkin and whisper, "No." The napkin smells of cloves. You shift your weight. The chair groans. You groan. Somewhere, a priest groans. The hall groans with you. You are one organism now. You whisper to a servant, "Tell the stable I may never ride again." He nods without question. He has seen this before. Someone mentions digestion. You laugh. It is a thin, reedy sound, like a ghost giving up. A platter of candied ginger appears. You stare at it. Salvation? Mockery? You take one piece. It is sharp, cleansing, cruel. It cuts through the fog in your brain like a noblewoman through scandal. You love it. You hate it. You marry it internally. The fire crackles. A sugared chestnut explodes. No one flinches. Your hands feel like ornaments. Your lap is an archive of crumbs. You think of simpler times. Morning, perhaps. Before the cheese, you close your eyes. Just for a second. You are not asleep. You are meditating. On pudding. On purpose. A voice beside you says, "Shall I summon your horse?" You open one eye. "No," you murmur. "Summon my will." Then you fold gently sideways, like a letter someone meant to send, and sleep among the napkins. You stagger sideways through a tapestry, not around it, through it. There was a door once. A secret passage, carved lovingly into the stone by ancestors who understood that no one should be witnessed in the aftermath of a sugared eel and fig-stuffed pheasant feast. You lurch into a narrow corridor lined with candlelight and the unmistakable scent of rosemary and deep, unrelenting shame. You are not fleeing. You are not sick. You are nobility. You are simply recollecting yourself. The room awaits. It is not labeled. Of course, nothing shameful ever is. A subtle embroidered sign above the archway says quiet repose, stitched in thread the color of discretion. You press a hand to your chest. It comes away sticky, possibly mead, possibly melted marzipan, possibly regret. The room is dim, which is helpful. Dim lighting hides many things, like tears or the expression you make when your liver tries to defect. Plush cushions dot the floor, none of them matching, all of them slightly suspicious. A jug of water sits in the center of a small table, beside a bowl of dried lavender and a single lemon slice, as if this is a spa and not a noble digestive war bunker. You collapse onto something that might once have been a chaise. It sighs beneath you, either in empathy or because someone else is already lying in it. You don't check. If they are here, they understand. You are not vomiting. You are not ill. You are merely aligning your humors. This is very different. The 4 humors, black bile, yellow bile, blood, and phlegm, are having an animated family argument somewhere in your torso. Your spleen is weeping. Your stomach has staged a walkout. Your gallbladder is on fire. It might be literal. Another noble stumbles into the room. He is gray around the mouth and carries the aura of someone who saw a sugar swan move. You nod at one another in mutual understanding. No words. He takes a cushion, faces the wall. You both pretend this is normal. The air is thick with unspoken truths. You hear someone breathing in slow, methodical sobs behind a curtain. Possibly a duke, possibly yourself in 10 minutes. A page enters with a tray of peppermint soaked in vinegar. He sets it down and bows so low his forehead touches the tiles. He does not make eye contact. He has seen too much. You reach for the peppermint. It crumbles between your fingers, releasing a scent so aggressive it could double as an exorcism. You sniff it like a noble opiate and feel clarity return. Not much. Just enough to remember your own name and that you're wearing someone else's girdle. You let it go. Priorities. Across the room, a baroness burps like a prophecy. Someone applauds. The priest is here now. He's not praying. He's curled in a corner, sipping thin broth and staring into the middle distance. You wonder if he, too, consumed the candied turnip sculpture of Saint Ursula. You both know it was a mistake. Your stomach has developed a personality. It is vindictive. It is theatrical. It is narrating your poor choices with the tone of a disappointed uncle. You pat it gently, whispering bribes. The gurgling continues. It sounds liturgical. A servant enters with a bowl. No one asks what's in it. It steams menacingly and smells like boiled neutrality. You accept a ladle. You sip. It is thin gruel mixed with diplomatic silence. It helps. A little. Your insides stop spinning. They are now gently rocking, like a ship made of figs sailing away from dignity. The lemon slice has been placed delicately in your water. You swirl it, like you're trying to summon a more stable version of yourself. You are not dizzy. The walls are merely ambitious. You lean back against the chaise and exhale. You are not throwing up. You are not Roman. This is not a vomitorium. But if it were, you would be its king. Someone passes you a cloth soaked in rosewater and penance. You press it to your forehead. You don't know where it's been. You don't care. It smells like surrender. There is a moment of silence. Then, from the far side of the room, someone speaks. I saw the pudding blink. You nod solemnly. That tracks. Another noble moans softly, then mutters something about treacle being a demon. You briefly consider writing your will. Then you remember you have no heirs, only a hawk with a title and a cousin who thinks bathing weakens the soul. You sit up slowly, very slowly. Your organs rearrange themselves like party guests realizing the host has left. You are still not entirely human. You are something new, something forged in custard and gilded pears. You brush the crumbs from your tunic. They multiply. You stop. Your vision clears. The lemon slice seems to salute you. You nod back. You rise. Not fully, not like someone reborn, but like a noble with somewhere else to be and a vague idea of what dignity once felt like. You leave the room without looking back. The others do not cheer, but they know. You are not well, but you are going back in. You are returned to your seat like a wounded general. The hall is dimmer now, or maybe it's your vision. You're unsure if that's candlelight or divine punishment flickering at the corners of your eyes. The feast has slowed, but the table is still alive, buzzing with murmurs, the occasional belch of sorrow, and at least one noble quietly negotiating with God. A lute plinks in the background, plunking out what sounds like a funeral dirge for your colon. A silver bowl is placed before you. Inside, a tragic herb garden has been chopped, dried, and sacrificed. Peppermint leaves, fennel seeds, whole cloves, anise that looks like tiny medieval shuriken. A nearby physician, who once bled a duke for melancholy of the toes, and assures you that this will balance the winds. You don't want balance. You want absolution. You pluck a fennel seed and chew. It shatters like regret. The flavor is sharp and bitter with undertones of betrayal. It tastes like someone once read about licorice, got it wrong, and decided that was fine. You force yourself to swallow. Your throat constricts, then sighs. The clove comes next, pungent and confrontational. Your tongue recoils. It's like being kissed by a spicy ghost with too much confidence. You cough discreetly into a monogrammed napkin. A servant bows. You pretend you meant to do that. Across the table, a knight with a digestive tract made of iron eats 3 peppercorns and smiles like he's tasted heaven. He has not. You know this. You know he just likes pain. You try the peppermint. It starts polite, fresh, almost hopeful, then turns aggressive, sharp as a dagger dipped in mouthwash. It doesn't cool so much as burn backwards. You feel it climb up behind your eyes and take residence in your sinuses. Tears well. You are not crying. It is the herbs. The herbs are strong and cruel and raised without love. Someone offers you honeyed ginger. You accept it like an apology. The sweetness is almost too much. You are being emotionally manipulated by a root. The conversation around you picks up, slowly and cautiously, as if no one wants to wake the collective digestive hangover clinging to the walls. People speak in low tones. They use phrases like light supper and never again. A baron picks at a comfit and mutters something about mortality. Someone nods so slowly, it takes a full minute. You reach for the little ceramic cup beside your plate. Inside is spiced wine, warm and sticky. It smells like cinnamon and consequences. You sip. It is both the cure and the cause. The wine coils in your belly like a small, polite dragon made of cloves. Your stomach gives a warning rumble, less a threat than a statement of continued presence. There's a man across the hall swirling a goblet of vinegar water, claiming it aligns the spleen with the stars. You consider trying it. You do not. You've aligned enough organs today. Let them drift. The bowl of herbs remains, unmoving, unblinking. You take another handful and chew, out of duty more than hope. The crunch is loud enough to summon attention. Someone raises a brow. You raise a brow back. It's a draw. A noblewoman discreetly bites a cardamom pod and winces like it owed her money. She does not spit it out. She simply stares into the void and continues chewing. You respect her. You fear her. The minstrels begin to play something vaguely optimistic. You suspect it's meant to uplift the spirit and distract from the gnawing sense that your intestines are locked in philosophical combat. You pretend it works. You nod to the rhythm. The rhythm nods back. A monk beside you discusses the spiritual symbolism of digestives. He says cloves represent resilience, fennel, penance, peppermint, divine intervention. You ask what anise means. He says nothing, just looks away. You nibble on candied coriander. It tastes like someone tried to sweeten a soap. You pretend to enjoy it. The performance is convincing. A nearby earl compliments your palate. You thank him and silently curse your tongue for being such an eager liar. A page returns with a new item. Quince paste wrapped in fig leaves. It is the color of sunset and the texture of political scandal. You bite. It lingers in your mouth like an unresolved argument. You swallow it with your pride. Time stretches. Your belt is no longer functional. You consider unfastening it, but fear the consequences. The last noble who tried is currently asleep under the table, dreaming of simpler foods, oats, broth, oblivion. Someone mentions that digestion is a sacred process. Another suggests bloodletting. A third whispers that next time we skip dinner and eat prayers. You laugh, lightly, carefully. Nothing moves. You remain seated. A candle sputters. A goose-shaped sugar sculpture melts slowly, as if it too cannot endure another clove. You understand it. You feel its pain. You are the goose. The bowl of herbs is nearly empty. Your breath smells like ancient medicine and botanical vengeance. You sip the wine again, slower this time, like you're taming it. It tames you. The regret doesn't vanish. It crystallizes, but you survive. The napkin pyramid towers above the remnants of goose bones and jelly horrors, glowing faintly in the torchlight like a relic of an extinct religion. You stare at it with reverence and suspicion. It is taller than your cousin. It leans only slightly, which makes it more terrifying. At the base are simple folds, clumsy triangles. At the peak, a swan, a dragon, and, most disturbingly, a man with a cheese for a head, grinning with the confidence of a saint who has never known digestion. No one admits to folding them. Servants shrug. Nobles pretend this has always been here, part of the hall, like the beams or the rats. You wonder if the napkins folded themselves, possessed by linen spirits seeking higher purpose. The swan glares at you, wings crisp and symmetrical, beak sharp enough to cut bread. The dragon curls around it, scales pressed into place with obsessive hands, tail ending in a little embroidered flourish that reads, "Made in Bruges." The cheese-headed man defies explanation. He leans forward, daring you to understand him. You do not. The table erupts in admiration. A knight declares the folds a metaphor for loyalty. A priest insists they represent the Holy Trinity, though he falters when asked which member is the cheese man. The jester claims he could fold something better, then sneezes into a napkin, reducing his only attempt to damp chaos. Everyone laughs too loudly. Fear disguises itself as humor. You reach for a napkin, a humble one near the bottom shaped into a sad little boat. It collapses immediately in your hand, limp and ordinary. You dab your mouth. The swan rustles. You freeze. Did it move? No. You are tired. You are noble. You are hallucinating linen. The wine returns. Someone makes a toast to the ingenuity of table arts. Another praises the patience of the folder. No one acknowledges the obvious. No human hand could have done this. The pyramid has geometry beyond your comprehension, angles that should not exist, creases that fold into themselves, infinite. You look too long and feel yourself leaning, mind slipping into napkin recursion. You panic. You blow your nose, loudly, into the swan. The room gasps. Silence drops like a sword. The swan wilts in your hands, its proud beak bending, its wings surrendering. The dragon's jaw slackens. The cheese-headed man seems to sneer more deeply. You dab again, desperate, trying to disguise treason as etiquette. The linen grows damper. The horror grows louder. Across the hall, someone faints. A baroness rises. She accuses you of sacrilege. Another counters that napkins are meant to be used, that this was a test of humility, and you have passed. The priest sides with you. The knight sides against. The dragon falls from the pyramid with a faint sigh. The pyramid trembles. You sit frozen, nose slightly cleaner, destiny slightly altered. You are not sure if you've committed an act of rebellion or sparked a civil war. The jester claps once, slowly. No one joins him. The pyramid collapses, finally, majestically, like a dying empire. Napkins flutter across the hall, settling on plates, goblets, faces. One lands on the dog. He eats it with joy. The tension dissolves. People laugh again, relieved, nervous, eager to move on. They pretend the napkin kingdom never existed. They stab their forks into pears. They talk of politics and swans as food, not folded cloth. You sit quietly, the damp swan limp in your lap. You have killed something holy, or saved everyone from linen tyranny. You cannot decide. You drink more wine. It tastes of absolution. The cheese-headed man remains intact, staring at you from the wreckage. You do not look back. You wake with a start, though nothing has startled you except your own stomach remembering it has rights. The chamber is cold, the fire long gone to embers, your nightgown twisted around you like a poorly tied treaty. At first you think it's a dream, the kind where pears whisper politics, but no. Someone has boiled them in wine again, and the scent drifts into your bedchamber like a determined ghost. A servant stands there, expression blank, holding a silver dish of steaming fruit. He does not speak. He does not explain. He merely waits, as though midnight pears were your birthright. You rub your eyes. He thrusts the dish closer. You sigh. Nobility has no schedule. Hunger has no mercy. You sit up slowly, hair sticking out like a crown of straw, nightgown clinging to you like a damp curtain. You should refuse. You should demand water, or silence, or the return of your dignity. Instead, you accept a spoon. The pears glisten darkly, soaked in wine so rich it might have been poured from the Pope's own cellar. Steam curls around your face, staining your breath with sugar before you even taste it. You eat half. Of course you do. You don't even remember doing it. One moment you are frowning at the absurdity of midnight fruit. The next, the dish is half empty and your lips are stained purple. The servant nods once, as if you've completed a sacred rite, and disappears without sound. The door closes behind him. The chamber is quiet again, except for the faint hum of pears fermenting in your veins. You lie back down, sticky and ashamed. You tell yourself you'll forget this by morning, that it was nothing, that no one will ever know. But rumors travel faster than monks on horseback. By sunrise, they say you demanded pears by torchlight, that you consumed them with a hunger not seen since Caesar himself. Some insist you spoke in tongues after the third bite. Others claim the pears were blessed, and you absorbed a fragment of prophecy with every mouthful. At breakfast, eyes linger on you too long. A minstrel begins to compose a ballad. He rhymes pear with despair, and wine with divine. You glare, but it's too late. The legend has begun. You are now the one who feasts at midnight, the noble who cannot resist boiled fruit when the moon is high. It will follow you for years. It will be written in margins, whispered in kitchens, embroidered badly into tapestries. A nightgown, a spoon, a bowl of pears. This is your legacy. You pick at your morning bread and try not to remember the taste of wine-soaked sweetness dripping down your chin. You fail. The pears remember you too. The turnips come first. They roll across the dark like pale moons, bumping into each other, multiplying, surrounding you. You are not afraid of turnips. You are a noble. You are afraid of what they mean. Every turnip carries with it the memory of peasants, of soil, of hunger, unfestooned by sauces or sugar. The turnips whisper. They say your name. They ask you why you need gold on your pears when salt would have done. Then the sausage arrives. Not as food, as creature. It has arms, thin, pale arms with little gloved hands. It jogs toward you in the way only meat in a casing can. Awkwardly, desperately, with resolve. It shouts something, muffled by grease. You cannot hear the words. You cannot forget the tone. It is not kind. A quail flutters down next. Small, roasted, crackling, but still alive. It opens its tiny beak and speaks Latin fluently, rolling the R's as though auditioning for theology. You never learned Latin properly. You nod anyway, humiliated. The quail cites scripture. It condemns you with a verse about gluttony, or possibly poultry. You cry softly. The quail is unimpressed. It resumes reciting, feathers glistening in imaginary candlelight. The feast grows around you, a banquet stretching endlessly across your dreamscape. Swans glare with golden crowns, puddings wobble with malicious rhythm. A peacock struts across the table, alive again, fully feathered, glaring at you with resurrected disdain. Your feet sink into trenchers of stale bread, each one collapsing like a forgotten oath. You reach for a goblet of wine to steady yourself. It is too heavy. It sloshes thickly, filled not with wine but jam, plum jam. It coats your hand, sticks to your sleeve, crawls up your arm with the patience of guilt. You try to run. Your legs are sluggish, bound by ribbons of marzipan. The hedgehogs you once devoured crawl beside you, almond eyes blinking in accusation. They squeak like sugar mice. You trip over a pie. The crust cracks. Inside, a minstrel is still singing. He winks as you fall. You hate him. You land on cheese. Blue, soft, moving. It grips you like soil. The mold creeps toward your mouth. You scream. The cheese hums. It tells you secrets about your lineage you do not want to hear. You close your eyes. You beg for turnips again. At least they were honest. But the turnips do not return. Only figs, bowls of figs, bursting, oozing honey, clinging to you with sticky devotion. You choke on sweetness. You claw at the air, gasping. The quail flutters onto your shoulder, whispering conjugations. The sausage takes your hand. You are not comforted. You are doomed. You wake. Your pillow is damp. Your nightgown is tangled. You smell faintly of cloves and shame. Morning sunlight filters in, mocking you gently. A servant enters with figs. Again. Always figs. You swallow a sigh. You do not resist. You eat one automatically. Your fingers are tacky before you've even spoken a word. On the table beside you, the dog sits proudly. He has already eaten your eggs. Again. He licks his muzzle with aristocratic precision. He is a knight. He is untouchable. He wags his tail in victory. You stare at him. He stares back. You are equals. You are defeated. You lean back against the pillows. You are full, always full. Foolish, because you will do it all again. Faintly sticky, because nothing washes off completely. Not honey, not wine, not memory. You close your eyes, you drift, you float, as all nobles do.